All right, Wolf. It looks like we're going to have a new RB1 in Pittsburgh next year, man. James Conner officially signing with the Arizona Cardinals on a 1-year deal. And obviously, James was a fan favorite here. I have a personal connection with him just because I was able to announce him being drafted here. But man, I just feel so happy for him to get this fresh start. But I know you feel the same way I felt about James in terms of our love for him and stuff like that. So I would just love to hear what your thoughts are on him signing with Arizona.
I know I was kind of like abbreviated because I was hoping upon hope that they could come to some sort of meeting of the heads and we could get James back. Maybe because, you've got this cap stuff going on and everything's kind of lowered a little bit. And I thought just maybe we can get him back. But, as it were, maybe this is the best thing for him. I was with on my brother's show, who is like the Tunch of Arizona.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The Cardinals, Ron Wolfley. And Ron was talking about James. So I did his show with him talking about James. And so I'm glad for James. I'm sorry for us. But, that's the NFL life.
It definitely is, man. Like you said, to be able to see a guy that was homegrown here and now he's going to get a chance to spread his wings somewhere else. Like I said, overall, I'm just happy for him to get that fresh start so he can go out and just continue on his legacy that he already has solidified. But with that, it opens up new opportunities. With that, we get a chance to see something from the stable of backs that we currently have that they might not have gotten that opportunity to have if James was still going to be on the roster. So with that, I would love to hear, man, just your thoughts on Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Samuels, and Kalen Ballage in terms of just what are you expecting from that group of guys going into next season?
I think it's intriguing because it's certainly with James gone. Now you're talking about the lead dog. Okay, so we know a 3-down back lead dog. We know is the preference for a 3-down back.
Pro bowler as well. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is I'm going over this thing. I'm looking at these guys and I'm going to myself, the one guy that really kind of intrigues me, and I'm not sure of all the variables why, but Jalen Samuels. Let's say Jalen Samuels, and probably because you know what, after a draft they have the vets, they bring the vets in with the rookies, and we all get together for a big little hanging out and eating at a steakhouse somewhere.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yes.
I got to meet Jalen there, and I really like this kid. And one of the things I noticed when we were talking was about his lack of blitzing pickups, shall we say. He's always out catching the ball.
Right.
And the fact is, when he went to camp later on, he showed he didn't know much about picking up blitz pickups.
Which is common for a lot of those running backs that come from the collegiate area, because typically that's not their role when they're the RB1 at their respective schools. Typically they have this big guy that comes in a block form. So I'm with you on that. They definitely do struggle, man.
Exactly so. And then also the fact that, he's a pretty good pass catcher, did a lot of that coming out of school. But he ran the ball, if I recall right, in 2018, his rookie year, he ran the ball 19 carries, 142 yards,
Patriots
and
game,
2 receptions for 30 yards. And that's second most in Steeler history to Bam Morris, who dropped 146 on somebody. I think it was the Ravens, but I'm not sure, back a few years ago. So the deal is I look at this kid and I went back and watched a little bit of reel on that. And I'm going, this kid has got some scoop.
He does.
He's got some swivelacious moves. He's got a little bit of the zip doo dah and the zig and the zag and all that sort of thing. And so I'm wondering to myself, could he be a guy that they look at and say, this guy needs more carries?
Yeah, Jalen is very intriguing like that. Obviously his former background at NC State, where they utilized him, as a tight end some, but then obviously as a running back as well, you can see the versatility with him. And I think that's why the Steelers, picked him up when they did and ultimately have kept him along for, the duration that he's been here. But to me, the one that I'm intrigued about is Kalen Ballage. Like,
wow, you say Kalen Ballage. What say you on that?
So like when I watch Kalen, he's one of those guys where if you look at his track record, right, the 4 stops that he's been, the 3 stops in the 4 years, he hasn't really caught on anywhere for an elongated period of time. But when you cut his tape on and you watch him, you see all of the makings of a feature back. He can pass block. He can catch. He has speed. He has great size. Can make a guy miss. Tough in the hole. I mean, he has all of these things, but the problem is the consistency element. And I think when we're talking about all 4 of these running backs, right, in terms of Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Samuels, and Kalen Ballage, all 4 of those guys are intriguing because they do certain things really well, But the thing that makes us all a little skeptical about them is their lack of consistency. But with Kalen, if he can put it together, I do think that he has the most potential out of the group. But the problem is, will he tap into it and consistently tap into it? And I think that's where, time will tell. But I'm really intrigued about Kalen, though.
It's interesting because you look at this guy's resume, and he's a big guy. He's a big dude.
Yes, absolutely, man.
He's decently fast. Apparently, he's already special team savvy. I mean, this is a guy that goes out and apparently does a good job as a special teamer type of guy, banging away. It makes you a little bit intrigued because he caught more passes than you would think for a guy who had been kind of, going from team to team to team. And as well as I do, it's just not about going or making a team. It's about having the opportunity to show what you can do at the right time. And sometimes there are guys that float around like a James Harrison, who was cut innumerable times, and yet you come on to be one of the greatest players that ever played for the Pittsburgh Steelers at that outside linebacker. So those type of things can happen. And certainly I look at a guy like Kalen, and I love it. I look at a guy like Jalen, I go, how do you go 19 for $142? And then it doesn't happen by mistake, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree with you 100% right there.
Yeah, I look at Jalen, and I go, well, it could happen if he gets enough opportunity. Now, does he get the opportunity? And the same thing you're talking about, Kalen.
Yeah, without a doubt. And when we talk about guys that bounce around a little bit, sometimes fit is important. Even though you can make a roster, you might not be the best fit for what they're trying to do offensively or whatever your respective position may be. So that could have played into the situation with Kalen. But the perception around him, I know when we first signed him, was that he was only a short yardage back. But the beauty of football, especially at the professional level, is everything is filmed. We get a chance to see you. We don't have to hear what people say about your game. The tape is your living, breathing resume. That's what Coach Tomlin always says, and I love him for that. You cut the tape on for Kalen, and he's more than just a short yardage back. You cut the tape on, it's like you see this, you see that, you see this. So I also think the perception, along with maybe just being in the bad situation from an organizational standpoint. Remember, he was in Miami as well, and then we obviously know he was with the Chargers at the second half of the season last year. He's going to have a lot more stability here in Pittsburgh. Coach Tomlin, Kevin Colbert, this organization is going to feel different when he gets here and he sees the continuity. He sees the brotherhood and how everybody speaks from that stance of love and how we want to improve everyone. I think that could definitely benefit him. But like I said, he's just really intriguing because of everything that he possesses. Now, can he put it together? That's going to be the thing, though, right? Because how many times have we seen people, Wolf, where it's like, man, this guy's a great athlete, or he does this, and this really well, but he doesn't do it enough. He doesn't do it consistently enough. And then we start talking about, well, man, is he ever going to, reach that full potential? With Kalen, because he's not a high pedigree guy for the Steelers, that's the only thing that's going to make it a little bit more time sensitive for him. And I think Jalen's in a similar situation, both of those guys, in terms of it being time sensitive, that they're going to have to show what they can do sooner rather than later.
I agree with you because, again, coming up for the draft and so forth, what's coming down there. But to me, I look at Jalen and I go, he's already past savvy. This is a guy who, can catch the ball, come and line up as a receiver in the slot, do those sorts of things. And I'm just wondering if it's the lack of opportunities due to things that were, out of his control, or whether he's deficient in some areas that I'm not aware of. And maybe one of them could be the special teams where you get a hat or don't get a hat. Yeah. And maybe that's one of the determinations on the backside of it. But I look at him and it bothers me when you watch the tape and you go, wait a minute, this cat just scooted for $142. I'm not talking about 55 yards. I'm not talking about 75 yards. We're talking $142. That's a lot of yardage for a young buck.
Absolutely. And when you think about how he went about getting it, it wasn't as if he was, breaking off 60, 70-yard runs either. He had to get it the hard way. So you can see, like I said, the framework is there. The foundation is there for Jalen. Consistency and the special teams element is huge, especially when you're talking about a committee approach versus a feature back approach. If you're not the feature, if you're not RB1, you're going to have that special teams element. That's the beauty of Benny Snell. We've seen that numerous times where even though he might not have an impact on offense right away, he was coming on there making tackles on special teams. You saw him covering kicks. To me, the versatility that you bring from a special team standpoint if you're not the guy at running back, you have to have that part of your game. So that way you consistently get a helmet, and that will afford you a lot more opportunities.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you think that Kalen lines up more towards like a Trey Edmonds, a special teams guy with, doesn't run the ball, exceedingly well, but he's physical and strong and does the thing, or maybe just hasn't had the opportunity to show that he can run it very well? Or is he more towards the Benny Snell type of guy where we know Benny can run the ball?
Yeah. To me, I think he's more in line with Benny Snell. When you watch their styles, both of these guys are bigger, more bruising style of runners. I think Kalen has a little bit more foot speed to him, but obviously Benny has been in the system a lot longer and he's a lot more familiar with the system. So that part is going to be intriguing, but it's going to come down to the basic fundamentals of consistency. We saw Benny Snell last year. He had times where he looked really good, and then he had times where it was a little inconsistent. We got frustrated with him. I think that's going to be the big thing with Benny. Can he continue to put it together for 17 games? Can he do it play in and play out? Because Wolf, you know this as well, baby. Anybody can do it once. Anybody can get lucky and do it twice. But you have to be able to do it consistently, play in and play out. And that's what separates the players that are, going to have nice careers in this league and the guys that fizzle out in a couple of years.
I wouldn't be remiss. The thought just came into my gourd. You and I have both played the special teams. And we both know how important it is to be an active participant, especially when you're young. As Mike Tomlin says, that's how you pay rent. You get on the special teams. What was your favorite special teams coverage or return unit?
For me, man, I love punt. I love punt coverage because first off, you have to show versatility. It's not like kickoff where, all right, if this guy is just a big, fast guy, most guys are going to move out of his way. It's not like kickoff return where you got to sit here and just block the whole time. I didn't like that either. And it's not like punt return where I got to hold you up and then I got to chase you down here and then I got to block so I can keep my returner free. Way too long of a play. I love punt return, though, because it's still very significant and it's a ton of those snaps. We know you're not going to score a ton of touchdowns every week. So it could be times where you only kick the ball off once, but you're going to punt the ball for a fact. So you get to go out there and you get to show how multifaceted you are. I get to protect first. Shout out to my O-line heritage. I played O-line in high school. So, I got love for the guys up front. I get a chance to put my paws on somebody and block them. Might even get a pancake, throw a little syrup on it. And then after that, now I get to show my defensive savvy, my speed when I get to run downfield and make a tackle on that punt return guy. So for me, I always love that. And it's just such a field flipping, momentum shifting play if you get a big hit on punt return. So that was my favorite special team. But what about you, man?
I love the kickoff. Okay, I got to tell you the truth because, number one, there's not that many in a game. I mean, sometimes you do. And as a young buck, you're for a fat guy, you're always saving your energy. You know what I mean? But the other thing about it was, and by the way, if you go back to 1980 against the Houston Oilers, all right, the season opener at Three Rivers, opening kickoff, you know who made the hit? That's right, Mr. L3 right here.
Talk about it.
Tunch said that I was so slow, everybody else got blocked, and then I came down and made the hit. But the point was, I love the kickoff because of the fact you had this opportunity to go down and put a big bang. That was exciting. No parachute, no nothing. Had right down there, line somebody up, read the coverage the return as you're going along, and then just slobber knock somebody. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was as good a case of, deceleration trauma as you're going to experience all day.
I love how you phrase these things. Deceleration trauma. I forgot what you dropped earlier. You had another one of those Wolf-isms. I love it.
Slobber knocker, my friend.
There it is, the slobber knocker.
Yes.
I like that. But now transitioning back to this running back conversation, right? So we talked about the significance of the special teams element. We've talked about the group and the new opportunities that they're going to have since James Conner is gone now. But something else that's been talked about a ton, especially with the draft being right around the corner, is should the Pittsburgh Steelers go running back at pick 24? Now, I want to hear from you because, you offensive guys, y'all are always loving offensive picks. Give me more offensive help. You always want more help, and the rules are always specialized and put in place for you guys. So I would love to hear just how you feel about pick 24, man. You want to go running back there?
I can't help but think in my mind, if the guy's available, that Najee Harris from Alabama, The guy is really pretty amazing. I understand Travis Etienne and some other guys, but and I understand that also there's another guy at Alabama a lot of people are talking about, Landon Dickerson, the center. The fact of the matter is, with James heading to Arizona. You're looking for that 3-down back. You're looking for a guy that is going to be the big dog in the backfield. And one of the things you love about a young buck like Najee Harris is the fact that he's fresh out of college. Yeah, he carried the ball a number of times, right? But it's not the pro hitting and everything. Well, it's pretty close to it in Alabama.
I was going to say the SEC Alabama. Yeah.
Exactly. But this is the guy that I think if you had the opportunity to draft him, he would be something. He's got a nice power base. He's fast. Yeah. He's got all the balance, the vision. One of the things that we as offensive linemen, you always want to have a back that's not going to give you a ballistic enema. He's not going to close his eyes and blindfold and then nail you in the back or in the
worst. Those are the worst type. Yes.
He's going to just, throw it up there and try to nail somebody. He's going to keep his eyes open. He's going to read the hole and he's going to accelerate through it. So if I would have an opportunity, if I were the Steelers and any of those three guys showed up, I would take Najee Harris.
I like that. Now, for me, I'm a Najee fan as well. I love his size. He honestly reminds me of Le'Veon Bell in terms of the size, the agility, you see him jumping over players. But the thing that both of those guys necessarily didn't have was that top end gear to be able to go 60 yards or 70 yards to score a touchdown. But outside of that, Najee is a very much complete, ready to come in and be RB1 style player. And there's a reason why he's going to get drafted, pretty high in this upcoming draft. But for me, I like Travis Etienne a little bit more. And this is the reason. As a defender, I always ask myself, what scares me more?
Oh, yeah.
A bigger back running me over doesn't scare me because at the end of the day, even if you run me over, all I have to do is just grab your legs on my way down and you're going to trip over me. So either way, the tackle is made. It might not be the most glamorous, but I got you down. But when I think of Travis, I say, man, if I can't touch this guy, how am I going to stop him? And even though I think Najee has the better vision and is the better, he has the better vision and better inside runner, what we see plenty of times with Travis is even though he might miss his first cut, once he decides to put his foot in the ground and get north and south, he has that gear that can just go 60 yards and go 70 yards, that Saquon Barkley-like look to it. And you're just like, whoa, that's different. And I just know me as a defender, that scares me more than the great agility, great vision and power, but can't outrun me. Because I think both of these guys are very comparable from a receiving standpoint. They both can catch out the backfield. Like I said, I think Najee's definitely the better pass blocker. But with Travis, I think that he does have a slight edge just because of the speed that he plays with as a receiver. But when we're talking about either one of these guys, I really feel like you're splitting hairs, right? It's 1A and 1B. And for the people that even talk about the kid out of UNC, Javonte Williams, he's kind of in that mix as a 1C because he's like that in between of both of those guys, right? A little bit faster than Najee, not as big as Najee though, right? Or not as fast as Etienne, but a little bit bigger than Etienne. So he's kind of that sweet spot between those guys. But yeah, I really think, man, if Travis is available, that's who I would go with personally.
Well, you'd be hard pressed to split a hair on my head, but the fact of the matter is, I will tell you, my friend, it makes me wonder which one of these cats is going to be available, if anybody's going to be available, and if you got to do a little bit of movement, if you so are enticed by one of these guys, because they are high quality, just enormously talented men. And I look at these guys and I go, wow, it would be nice to see a revamped running game get kick-started with one of these two. No doubt about it. I think that would be something.
Absolutely. And I just feel like this falls in line with what Mr. Rooney has been saying, what Kevin Colbert has been saying, and what Coach Tomlin has been saying. All offseason, that has been their message. They want to improve the running game. They said that it wasn't good enough last year, and they're going to do whatever it takes to improve it. Now, why is that significant? If James Conner was your RB1, whoever you bring in, whether it's committee or a singular running back, they need to be better than James, or at least on par with James. I feel like bringing in either Etienne, Najee Harris, or Javonte Williams, you get that. You're going to have that type of, all right, this is a upgrade right here. We're going to see something special that we haven't really seen of lately. So to me, I think if you're going to go running back, it needs to be one of those three guys, though.
So you're saying the Steelers are tipping their hand, maybe allowing James to walk, and then having these three guys possibly available, one of them anyhow, and then going after. Well, I would agree with you, because I do agree with Mr. Rooney and you right there. You've got to revamp this running game. You got to have the ability to move that rock. And I really think you go back and look at some of Ben's greatest games. Again, I'm getting off on a tangent, which is
I'm glad though.
Tangent, but the fact is, think about this. When was Ben so very good? Was when Ben was throwing for 200, 250, 300 yards, and we're rushing the ball for another 100, 150 yards. That sort of balance, I still think is there. I think it's to be had. And it certainly is one of those things, as well as I do. You don't like getting run over any more than I like to get run over. That's not what we do out there. That's not why we play the game, right? So when you got a guy that can do that, you get him. If you got an offensive line that can do that, you make them do that, because that sort of thing is a dominating position for an offense to be in, especially in the second half. And I always go back to the great Hines Ward blocking on Chris McAllister, the cornerback from the Ravens, the second half of one of those prolific, games that they had back in the day. And late in the game, when Bussey is rambling and running over Ravens and Ray Lewis and all kinds of guys, and Chris McAllister tells Hines, "You don't have to block me so hard. I'm in no hurry to get over there in front of Bussey." I love that story. That says everything about that's playing football right there.
Absolutely right there, man. And let's be real. This is the AFC North we're talking about. We know we want to pound that rock, baby. Yes, indeed. And I always think back, too, with Ben in terms of his recent history, that 2014 through 2017 time frame, or even 2018 when James had that Pro Bowl season, Ben looked great during that time frame. Then obviously has the injury at 19, but then we said, man, we thought that it got just way too out of balance this past season. And we saw it kind of taper down at the end of the year. Having a validated, solidified, or varsity above the line running game next year, I feel like that brings Ben back. It makes him look younger. It makes him look more improved. And ultimately, it's going to make this team a lot better. So we're going to see, though, man.
Absolutely. I think you're right on. I'm excited about it. I look forward to it.
So the Steelers made some moves also recently, man, bringing back Vince Williams along with signing Abdullah Anderson. Man, I'm first off excited about Vince being back. You know what Vince brings to the table. You know what he means to that linebacker room, the physicality, the tone setter that he plays with. Man, this is a guy that to me has been the heart and soul of that defense in terms of just the passion that he plays with. He's never been the best player on the field, but he's been one of the leaders on that defense for years now. He's one of the smartest guys out there. He's hardly ever going to be out of position. He's always going to communicate and make sure everybody else is in position. And just think about when he was out there next to Devin Bush while Devin Bush was younger and before Devin Bush got hurt. Devin played a lot faster and looked really good because you have less of a burden on your plate when you're playing next to a guy like Vince Williams. That's what he brings to the table. And like I said, when we initially released him, I was sad because I'm like, first, this is one of my teammates, a guy that I've, grown, our families are close and stuff like that. But it's just like, man, you want to see, him come back because his impact, what he brings to the table. And him coming back, I do feel like it just lessens the burden of having to address that linebacker position this year. Now it doesn't have to be as much of a priority. If you want to wait a little while or address it next year in the draft, you can do that when you bring a guy like Vince back into the roster.
You know what I love about what you're talking about, Vince, too, is there's an undeniable ferocity about the guy. There's a little bit of that old school, as we used to call him, like Tunch and I, Tunch actually gave him the moniker old school because of he gets a little gratified, a little, disgruntled, shall you say, as you approach the game, and I like that about players. I like that when you have like-minded individuals as you get ready to walk down that zone up to kickoff. You got guys that are a little bit of a temperament like what Vince puts out there. And I like that. He's a tone setter. He's a big banger. He's got that downhill thud. And maybe he's got some gaps in pass coverage. But at the same time, he's more than makes up for it in blitzing ability. What he does with the blitz, the kid's got a knack for getting home. And you love that about guys like Vince.
Absolutely. We say at linebacker, you're one of two things. You're either a cover linebacker or you're able to rush the quarterback. You got to pick and choose which one you're going to be. And Vince identified that very early on. He said, man, I'm not the best cover guy, so I'm going to make sure that I'm an elite blitzer. And we've seen him be a double-digit sack guy from that inside linebacker position, which is extremely hard to do. So big-time kudos to him. And that just shows, once again, his work ethic. But the last guy we got to talk about, Abdullah Anderson, man, the D tackle that we also just picked up as well, man. Any thoughts on him?
Well, you know what? He's not much to show. He's been, in the league. He was like the 2017 Player of the Year in the Patriot League, I believe, for Bucknell. 7 games, 4 tackles, and a sack. But the fact of the matter is, I'm looking forward. Do something great. We can yell Abdullah the Butcher like the old WWE wrestler. You know what I mean? There you go. Yeah. I like that. A little bit of Copeism, as we throw in here. Myron Cope would call, be all howling about it. But I see that they're stacking up some bodies on the defensive line. Glad the kid's aboard. Hopefully we'll see something from him.
Yeah, in the words of Coach Tomlin, we don't care about which means you got here. If you can play, we'll find a home for you. So for Abdullah, you're going to get your opportunity, man. Make the most of it once training camp hits and the preseason hits. And from there, solidify your spot. Trust me, I was in the same boat. Now, granted, I had a little bit more pedigree, but coming over, I wasn't this big money free agent signing initially. I had to earn it. I had to go out there and show that I could do this. And it worked out for me. So Abdullah, man, trust me, take a page out of all of our books and understand that, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is a great organization, and you're going to get your chance. Just don't waste it, baby.
Amen to that, my friend.
Yes, indeed. So, if you're good,
whoa, wait a minute. I forgot about this.
My bad.
I would be totally remiss if I did not include this. I just came back from Florida, and I was telling you about it.
Tell me about it. Must be nice vacation, right?
My wife, her high school girlfriend is a gal named Jill, and she and her husband Shannon. Why, golly. We're going to go down to visit them. They're great. They're big in the Vismans, Shannon and Jill Visman. They're from Pittsburgh, and they're big in the physical therapy realm. And, and son of a gun, we're talking. And guess what? They went to JMU, James Madison University. Dude. So what did I do? I'm sitting there going, well, gee, have you ever heard of a guy named Arthur Moats? You think I'd have been slapped. I mean, it was like, we don't know Arthur Moats. Are you kidding me? Arthur Moats, the greatest thing that JMU ever produced. Arthur Moats, one of the best guys you're ever going to meet in your life. I'm going, gadzooks, okay? Calm down. The fact was, Jill and Shannon Visman say, hey, Arthur Moats, hello, and that they are JMU grads along with you.
Hey, man, I am extremely humble. Appreciate them and always go Dukes, baby. Yes, indeed. Man, I'm glad you shared that, man. You done made me smiley. I'm over here blushing right now, Wolf. You made me blush, all right? I try to get up here and get all extra focused, and then you bring us some JMU and I start geeking, all right? So with that being said, Wolf, I appreciate you, man, and everybody appreciate you guys for tuning in. And until next time, here we go, Steelers.